Greetings, everyone. This is part 3, and I titled it Weak Souls. This has been an introductory series to understand fragmented parts of our soul, to understand brokenheartedness. There was a quote by Eric Hoffer that said, "The weakness of a soul is proportionate to the number of truths that must be kept from it." That's a powerful quote, and I believe it to be totally true. So make no mistake, we are at war. The red horse of unconventional warfare is riding. Casualties, as you will see as we go through to the very end of this session, so be sure to stay in this session to the very end. The casualties are occurring daily. Broken hearts are numerous, and most souls today are ill prepared to withstand the onslaught of attacks. Almost all resources have incorporated AI, whose goal is to outthink, whose goal is to elicit emotional responses, and whose goal is to outmaneuver individuals of all ages to achieve obedience to worldly conformity. This fallen world wants the proverbial horse and rider, which equate to our emotions and thinking, to be enslaved to a hive mind under worldly control. Daily, weak souls submit to alternate realities of seducing fantasies, beckoning to come on in. Oh, come on, taste and see. Oh, yeah, it's safe. No one can see us. No one knows. Or maybe, it's just a holiday. Get over it. In other words, souls are under direct attack by the forked tongue serpent, whispering, "Surely you will not die." Weak souls are like cracked cisterns that need mending. They need healing. Some may even need deliverance, and some may need both in order to hold the precious balm of Gilead from Yahushua HaMashiach. I want to use an example out of the Bible in regards to King David. Well, he wasn't king at the time, but David conquering Goliath. The Goliath of violations is facing us head on, just like the Goliath in the Bible faced David. The only way to defeat a Goliath is walking in the full armor of Yahweh, which supports, defends, and protects us, protects our very soul. So I want us to understand how much progress we have made, how much progress and understanding we have as his kingdom of priests on how to face giants of our past or our present violations with 5 smooth stones. 5 smooth stones that we have already incorporated as we have learned by going through the Fragmented Soul series. And this is simply an introduction. Pastor Bob Strahan has a full 16-part series that I have been encouraging all along for all of you to delve into. But to grab someone's attention at times, we have to, even though this is 4 parts and his is 16, we still sometimes have to reduce it because the attention span these days is shrinking smaller and smaller. People aren't being drawn to true substance. People aren't being drawn to truth, and that's going to be to their detriment. And this is Yahweh's way of waking us up because his return is drawing nigh. Are you going to be broken when he returns? Are you going to be weak when he returns? Or are you going to be strong in his spirit? I want you all to be strong in his spirit. So in this session, I will be sharing some news clips. Very important. I'll be sharing some reports and insights on how our spiritual and physical Goliaths can come into our very home and attack and even kill at times. I believe this whole series is a message that Yahweh wants his people to hear individually and corporately. And those of us that understand how to rightly divide his word of truth, those of us that understand that we are his kingdom of priests, those that understand that Israel are those born from above, he's speaking to the most. Because he's going to call up his 144,000 that have submitted to belief obedience so they can be vessels that can hold his power to reach a lost and dying world. But this message is for all of you that desire to fully understand who Yahweh is. And he is our high priest after the order of Melchizedek. That is huge. And once again, he has made us his kingdom of priests after every tongue, tribe, people, and nation. So Yah has provided our first piece of armor in order for us to have a strong soul. And that is having our loins girded in truth. And when David faced Goliath, he had his loins girded in truth. We see the violation in 1 Samuel 17:10. Then the Philistine said, "This day I shall reproach the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight together." He was very cocky, was he not? And that was a statement of violation. And that was one of the things that we encounter that can break our hearts, that can fragment our soul. Now, the length of violation is important too. And for 40 days, the Philistine drew near morning and evening and took his stand. The enemy wants to wear down the saints. Then in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 28, the violation's compounded. Why? Because David's older brother, Eliab, heard when he spoke to the men what David said, and Eliab's displeasure burned against David, and he said, "Why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle." Again, another attack, a violation from his own family made against David while David was trying to make a stand. So his violation was compounded not only by Goliath, the enemy, but also within his own camp, his own family. And then we see the ventilation. And my point is, by taking us through this one example, I want you, whenever you read throughout his word, I want you to see these 5 V's that are revealed in his very word. So in 1 Samuel 17:32, and David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant is going and shall fight with this Philistine." So David was struck by the gall of Goliath saying what he said and what his brother had said, because he saw in the spirit realm how those words were attacking the heart of man, the soul of man. And he said, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant is going and shall fight with this Philistine." So David ventilated his heart right then and there. And then validation comes. In verse 37 of chapter 17 of 1 Samuel, and David said, "Yahweh, who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he does deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." And Shaul said to David, go, and Yahweh be with you. David was validated. You're right on, David, go. And Yahweh be with you. See, throughout this violation, David is being a strong witness to those that are weak around him. He was surrounded by what? He was surrounded by weak souls. And David was walking in faith and the full armor of Yahweh, and his loins were girded with truth. Vindication, verse 46. This day Yahweh shall deliver you into my hand, and I shall strike you and take your head from you, and give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines today to the birds of the heavens and the wild beasts of earth, so that all the earth know that Elohim is for Israel. And all this assembly know that Yahweh does not save with sword and spear, for the battle belongs to Yahweh, and he shall give you into our hands. So even if there is no repentance from the violators, we can rest and we can forgive, because the battle belongs to Yahweh. And even though we share truth with the violators, even if they reject that truth, we still stand, because we know we've done what we can in the natural, but it's Yahweh that wins our battles, because ultimately it's against him. And then we reach eviction, verse 50. Thus David was stronger than the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. And there was no sword in the hand of David. So Yah removed the violator from Israel. Thus healing pursued. So with these 5 stones, these tools that Pastor Bob has shared with us, it will teach us how to commune with our soul. And the best starting point is to look back into your life at times you felt violated. Maybe at 3 years old, maybe at 8 years old, maybe as a teenager. And console that part of you that never really got over that. You know, listen to your own soul of how it felt at that age, and speak to it at that age. Let it ventilate that violation. And then, as long as it's not a pity party, then validate that part of you that got hurt, and forgive those violators, because they probably knew not what they did. And then know that you're free from that situation. And you go through the 5 V's, and it brings much healing. And what you will find out is that you don't think about that situation very much anymore, because you were able to bring healing to it. And Yahweh was invited in to heal the broken heart and integrate that part into your core soul. Only when we choose to focus, strengthen, and heal our soul fragments can we then love him with our whole heart. We will then be prepared to face violations, persecutions, and tribulations, because more and more evil is manifesting in day-to-day activities. It's manifesting through people that have weak souls, or souls that have not been submitted to Yahweh, that are letting their flesh be used by the evil one. We have to conquer our territories within, our soul fragments within ourselves, to enter that promised land, to bring all those territories together. Just like the Israelites went into the promised land and they possessed their portion of land, and then they integrated their strengths among them. Moses and Joshua were remnant warriors after Israel's sin with the golden calf, were they not? Because at that point, Israel's heart and soul had been broken and fragmented after that sin, after that sin of the golden calf, after that rebellious, after that refusal to be obedient in faith. The words of Yahweh had fallen on deaf ears, on stony, rebellious hearts. Moses and Joshua were the only two witnesses of what transpired with the sin of the golden calf. Think about that. Both Moses and Joshua would now have to leave and fight for Israel when the odds of success, it looked impossible. First, they both turned where? See, they both turned to Yahweh first. That's the first place you have to go. He can heal you. I can't. I want to be there for others. I want to help in the process if I can, but I can't. No, it's only Yahweh that can heal the brokenhearted and set the captives free and open the prison doors. So first, both Moses and Joshua turned to Yahweh. They positioned their tent outside the camp. They were set apart. They wanted a clear distinction of their set apartness. Moses communicates with the Israelites. But what was Joshua doing? Let's read and find out. If you have your Bibles, turn to Exodus chapter 33. And if not, I'll just read some of the scriptures from that point. Exodus 33, verse 1. And Yahweh said to Moses, "Come, go up from here, you and the people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt, to the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your seed I give it. And I shall send my messenger before you, and I shall drive out the Canaanites and the Amorite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Hivites and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. For I do not go up in your midst, because you are a stiff-necked people, lest I consume you on the way." And when the people heard this evil word, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. So this was taking place right after the sin of the golden calf. Only Moses and Joshua were not tainted by that sin. They had remained true to the Melchizedek covenant, marriage covenant, given at Mount Sinai. They were the only two. See, Yahweh always uses a remnant, does he not? And he's using you, he's using me. The people had broken Yahweh's covenant, and now they would no longer be a kingdom of priests, but soon the Aaronic Levitical priesthood would be established, and they would now be a nation with a priest. With this pending change in priesthoods, from Melchizedek to the Aaronic would come the change in law from the royal covenant Torah to the imposed system under the book of the law. This does spare their lives, but now Yahweh's firstborn Israel was now fragmented and badly broken. They had broken minds, they had broken wills, and they had broken emotions. And that would remain until Yahushua HaMashiach would come and restore the Melchizedek priesthood back to its reigning position. So if we jump down to verse 7 of Exodus 33, we read, "And Moses took his tent and pitched it outside the camp, far from the camp, and called it the tent of appointment. And it came to be that everyone who sought Yahweh went out to the tent of appointment, which was outside the camp. And it came to be, whenever Moses went out to the tent, that all the people rose, and each man stood at his tent door and watched Moses until he entered the tent. And it came to be, when Moses entered the tent, that the column of cloud descended and stood at the door of the tent, and he spoke with Moses. And all the people saw the column of cloud standing at the tent door. And all the people rose and bowed themselves, each one at the door of his tent." Now, keep in mind, who is Yahweh speaking to? He's speaking to Moses and Joshua, that had maintained their belief obedience. That's who he was speaking to. Verse 11. "Thus Yahweh spoke to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend, and he would return to the camp. But his servant Joshua, son of Nun, a young man, did not leave the tent." I think Psalm 61 kind of speaks to probably what was on Joshua's heart at that time. He said, "Hear my cry, O Elohim, listen to my prayer from the end of the earth. I call unto you. When my soul is faint, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you have been my refuge, a strong tower in the face of the enemy. Let me dwell in your tent forever. Let me take refuge in the shelter of your wings." Selah. As we continue to practice our annual wedding rehearsals, his return draws nigh. Our feast of ingathering, or sometimes it's called the Feast of Tabernacles, which is his feast, is of utmost importance. In 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 4 through 11, we read, "But you, brothers, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. For you are all sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. So then we should not sleep as others do, but we should watch and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk at night. But we who are of the day should be sober, putting on the breastplate of belief and love, and as a helmet, the expectation of deliverance. Because Elohim did not appoint us to wrath, but to obtain deliverance through our Master, Yahushua HaMashiach, who died for us so that we, whether awake or asleep, should live together with him. Therefore, encourage one another and build up one another, as indeed you do." We know in Isaiah 11:11 through 16 that Yahushua will gather the 12 tribes that have been fragmented, shattered, and scattered across the 7 continents and island nations. He is also the only one that can gather the fragments of a broken heart and soul and bind up the wounds. But where does this healing take place? The healing takes place in our soul, the holy place within us. He is the healer. His spirit is now in the Holy of Holies within us. Remember, only he can heal the brokenhearted and bring peace. All other options may ease brokenness to some degree, but not heal the brokenness. His kingdom of priests are positioned in close proximity to him. They have been washed by the blood of the Lamb, our high priest, after the order of Melchizedek. They have accepted and partaken in the covenant confirming meal. They obey, they do, they listen, and they guard his covenant commandments, which is their reasonable service of set apartness as his priest. Just as the Aaronic Levitical priesthood would daily care for the wilderness tabernacle, we too should meticulously care for our soul, because Satan is after your soul. He wants your soul fragmented. He wants you running to and fro. He wants your soul so weak that his demonic spirits can come and torment you. As with the wilderness tabernacle, daily, everything depended on how well things went in the tent of meeting. Today, we must realize we commune with Yah in our inner temple, presenting our bodies as a living sacrifice, and we prayerfully intercede for others. Remember, our great physician heals from the inside out, when worldly physicians, though very much appreciated, heal from the outside in. If I were to tempt you, you would know it. If I were to accuse you, you would know it. But if I were to deceive you, you would not know it. The power of Satan is in the lie. If you remove the lie, you remove the power. He's a liar. Deception is our worst enemy. Our defense is Yahushua. But guess what? Sadly, the last part of this saying that I just showed you The last part of that saying holds true in reverse, because the enemy knows if he removes the truth, he removes the power of Yahweh. So with this next generation coming up, he doesn't want them to know anything about the one true living Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The prince of the power of the air has done everything imaginable to remove Yahushua, Jesus of Nazareth, from the hearts and minds of children all the way to the elderly. Because of this, his truth, the source of defense and power, could be equated to the mocking kryptonite of Superman. Yah's truth has been greatly reduced, and what is still available to most is a genetically modified gospel message, and it lacks the true, full power of Yahweh. So to review brokenness and fragmentation, there's 4 main causes for which we use the acronym STAG to remember. The prince of the power of the air brings all 4 into our lives through the airways of fake news, of bad news, of traumatic and abusive events, through relationships, through crime, and anything to promote a continuance of generational sin. It's an attack on our soul. It violates our soul. So stress, if you put any person, place, or thing under enough pressure or stress, it will break. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, and it speaks words against the Most High, and it wears out the set apart ones of the Most High, and it intends to change appointed times, which are his feast days, which are our wedding rehearsals that most in the traditional church do not get, and they're still observing heathen holidays. And it intends to change appointed times in law, and they are given into his hands for a time and times and a half a time. The T in STAG is for trauma. We have all experienced trauma. Trauma will always cause us to fracture, whether it is physical, mental, or spiritual. However, the good news is that we can be healed of these things. Yahweh can put us back together. And this message is of hope and encouragement, because Satan doesn't want you to know that you can be healed. You do have hope. He wants you to think you cannot be healed. He wants you to think you have no hope. He wants you to think you are weak. But greater is he that is in us than he that is in this world. Never forget that. And Yah will never leave you or forsake you. Don't forget that either. Nothing is impossible. There is also the topic that we have come across recently about trapped trauma within a person's nervous system, which can bring on physical manifestations. And that is a whole different topic that hopefully we will get further into later on. But we are working on the foundation of understanding our soul. A for STAG is abuse. Again, we have all suffered some form of abuse. Some have experienced many abuses, some few. Others have been abused for years or decades, or like we just saw in the scenario of David and Goliath, for 40 days and nights taunted the Israelites. So abuse brings brokenness of mind, will, and emotions. The goal of abuse is to break the will, to get the people to conform, to get to your very soul to do something else, usually the opposite of what Yahweh wants you to do. Because see, Yahweh wants you to realize who you are in him. Yahweh wants you to realize your full potential. Yahweh wants you to realize why he put you on this earth. And abuse is a form of mind control. Abuse ranges from verbal, emotional, psychological, or physical. And G, generational sins. Yah told the Israelites to confess the sins of their fathers. Now, we cannot repent of their sins for them, but we can confess their sins and declare we want no part of such. It could be anything that they may have gotten involved in, any type of secret society, masonry, witchcraft, whatever. We cannot repent of their sins for them, but we can confess their sins and declare we want no part of such. By doing so, we are breaking, listen, we are breaking legal rights and contracts with Satan, and we're giving him notice. No more. The buck stops here. Between the holy place and holy of holies is where healing takes place. And our soul equates to the holy place, like in the wilderness tabernacle. And the holy of holies equates to his spirit within us. So when we commune with Yahweh, when we enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise, envision yourself entering into the tent of appointment, the holy place, before him and communing with him. We have a perfect example of this when the plague broke out among the Israelites and Moses promptly summoned Aaron to go and make atonement. Because, see, they knew that Yahweh is the great physician and he heals us from the inside out. So the first place they go is into the tent of appointment before Yahweh. Turn to number 16, and I have it up on the screen as well. Let's take a little journey. And it came to be when the congregation assembled against Moses and against Aaron that they turned toward the tent of appointment. So Moses turns toward the tent of appointment, and see, the cloud covered it, and the esteem of Yahweh appeared. And Moses and Aaron came before the tent of appointment. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Arise from amidst this congregation, and let me consume them in a moment." And they fell on their faces. So Moses said to Aaron, "Take the fire holder and put fire in it from the slaughter place and lay incense on it and go, hurry to the congregation and make atonement for them, for the wrath has gone out from Yahweh. The plague has begun." So where did the meeting take place? The meeting took place in the tent of appointment. Where did the intercessory revelation occur? It occurred in the tent of appointment between the holy place and the holy of holies. And are you not his kingdom of priests? Is that not where you too should go? Aaron quickly gathered the censer, incense, and fire from the slaughter place and hurried to the congregation to make atonement. We are intercessors for others as his kingdom of priests. And we must remember, first, there was soul disobedience that caused all of this chaos. We first saw it with Korah and the 250 that rose up against Moses and Aaron. And now we just read about when all the Israelites did the same thing the very next day. Can we not hold on to what's happening around us? Do we fall back so quickly? The very next day, they fell back into soul disobedience. A very dangerous place to be. And it brought death. And the death plague came upon the Israelites. The plague was stopped, but only after 14,700 died due to soul rebellion under the book of the law. So Satan knows if he can get people's soul to rebel against the one true living Elohim, it makes them weak, it makes them vulnerable, it makes them prey, it makes them open for his attack, and he loves it. Raise a shout for Yahweh, all the earth. Serve Yahweh with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know that Yahweh, he is Elohim. He has made us, and we are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Give thanks to him. Bless his name. For Yahweh is good. His loving commitment is everlasting, and his truth to all generations. His truth is so powerful. We are his betrothed. We have accepted and partaken of his covenant confirming meal of bread and wine. We have taken off our sandals of authority in the ways we once walked, and he has washed us to now follow in his footsteps. He is the judge that will and does deliver justice justly. The question is, do we walk in belief obedience? I mean, we think we might have sometimes, yeah, sometimes. But what was holding us back from complete belief obedience? I believe it's our soul fragments. I believe it's our brokenheartedness that has not healed that makes us stumble and makes us move more in the flesh than in his spirit. That's why belief obedience is very important. How are we fellowshipping and communing with our groom? Are we staying true to our vows? Are we rebelling? Are we arguing and getting mad at our groom or with one another? Are we giving him the cold shoulder and ignoring him? Are we loving him with only a fragment of our soul? Do we even realize we should be intimately communing with him daily in our inner world, our inner tabernacle? Are we even aware that we have broken hearts and fragmented souls that need healing and need Yahusha for that healing? Or do we think this fragmented soul stuff, boy, that's really for some kind of far out people? No, A fragmented soul is on a continuum. And newsflash, we're all on that continuum at some point. Some may have a single broken heart. Some may have multiple fragments, and some may have dissociative identity disorder. It's a whole continuum throughout life. You can find yourself at some point on that continuum, depending on what traumatic events happens to you in this life. It can catapult you from one end to the other, or back from a very severe end back to an end of healing. But make no mistake, we are all on this continuum at some point, and only Yahweh can heal the brokenhearted and set the captives free and open those prison doors that may be right at this moment being tormented by demonic spirits. So we need to start speaking to and strengthening our soul fragments and let Yahusha heal and integrate our parts in his perfect timing. Timing is everything. And you cannot rush integrating your parts. You have to go with him and let him heal you. He just wants to know the answer to this question. He wants to know, do you want to be healed? Because if you do, take his hand. Trust him. How brightly is his 7-branch menorah burning in your soul, the holy place? Is it burning clean, or is it spitting and sputtering black smoke? Are we burning first pressed, pure olive oil, or oil mixed with the flesh of the olive? Do we have enough oil, or is our oil leaking out from our broken hearts and fragmented souls? Are we cracked cisterns unable to hold and contain his esteem? Belief obedience is of utmost importance. Look at Romans chapter 1, verse 5. Paul stated in his introduction that it was through Yahusha that he had received favor and he had received the office of the emissary. For what? Why was he receiving favor? Why was he receiving the office of the emissary? For belief obedience among all the nations on behalf of his name. He functioned in belief obedience. And with that belief obedience came much power, came much favor, and he held the office of the emissary. He moved from a fragmented soul when he was persecuting believers to the office of emissary and favor because he healed his soul. He communed with his soul one-on-one with Yahweh for over 3 years. Paul went from a cracked cistern to obtaining favor and office of the emissary for his belief obedience. He became a set-apart vessel for Yahweh. We go on to read in Romans chapter 1, verse 8. First, I truly thank my Elohim, Paul said, through Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus of Nazareth, for you all, that your belief is spoken of in all the world. Is our belief spoken of in all the world? Is our belief that strong that it's spoken of in all the world? I'm asking that question. Have we offered our heart and soul to him as a living sacrifice, a sweet smelling aroma, or have we tried to compartmentalize our sins and only offer a few parts of our heart and soul? Have we even been aware that we may not be loving him with our whole heart when we thought we were, but we didn't even know we were fragmented souls? Did we even fully comprehend what a broken heart and fragmented soul meant? I say we did not. And that we ourselves can be found on that continuum of brokenness that I just recently described. Yahweh doesn't expect for us to be perfect, because we're not, and we never will be. We aim for that goal, and we will be one day when he makes us complete, when he gives us our glorified bodies. He only expects us to be willing to submit ourselves to his perfect will. He wants us to mature daily in him and be set apart in his sanctification process. And right now, I believe he is really wanting his people to strengthen their soul. It seems everywhere I turn, the same message is coming to others, even in the secular realm. For those of us that understand we are his kingdom of priests, we, of all believers, should understand how to care for our soul, how to walk in the Spirit, and how to help others heal from past stress, trauma, abuse, and other generational sins. The first step is awareness, and that is the purpose behind me introducing this topic, is to bring forth awareness of our condition. What condition is our condition in? Frankly, I didn't realize how a believer's heart and soul could remain in such bad condition after being saved. I believe I oversimplified the soul as purely a battle between the flesh and the spirit. It was a matter of just overcoming the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. And although that was true, when you look at this topic more deeply, when you add the complexity of brokenheartedness and fragmentation of the soul, a believer's soul takes on a more complex and convoluted condition. We must remember a key point. Listen up. We must remember a key point. When we are truly born again, it is our spirit within us that is born anew. Now, make no mistake, there should be fruit worthy of repentance, even in a broken state that is in the process of healing. The rebellious ones that choose to harden their hearts will find themselves being refined in the refiner's fire of the Great Tribulation. In the parable of the 10 virgins, all were virgins, but not all were ready. That doesn't mean they were not saved. It means that because they did not practice belief obedience in their soul, they would face the refining process by learning the lessons the hard way. In 1 John 3:9, everyone having been born of Elohim does not sin because his seed stays in them, and he is powerless to sin because he has been born of Elohim. Did y'all hear that? Write it down. 1 John 3:9. Everyone having been born of Elohim does not sin. Hello, what did you just say, Libby? Wait. Everyone having been born of Elohim does not sin. Wait a second, because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of Yah. Everyone having been born of Elohim does not sin because his seed stays in him, and he is powerless to sin because he has been born of Elohim. What part of you does not sin? The spirit in you that's been born anew does not sin because his seed stays in you. That's the part of us that does not sin. It's his spirit within us. 1 John 5:18. We know that everyone having been born of Elohim does not sin, but the one having been born of Elohim guards himself, and the wicked one does not touch him. How does the one having been born of Elohim guard himself? We guard ourselves through belief obedience. Because if we are obedient to our faith in him, if we are obedient to his word, and we practice and do what his word says, the wicked one does not touch him. We give the wicked one no right, no legal right to us. Brokenheartedness is more severe for some than others. So to review this Hebrew word, shabar means to break down, destroy, break in pieces. So literally, the soul can shatter. Functioning as a born-again believer can be challenging, especially when those around you cannot understand nor relate to a fragmented soul. Hopefully, with more presentations like this among believers, we will have a greater awareness and compassion. You know, I remember an electrician that came out to do some work at my house when I was still in the traditional church. He was a son-in-law to a girl I knew at that traditional church. It would not be until later that his wife posted a picture of him with one of his children on Facebook that really shocked me. He didn't have a shirt on, and across his chest, in big, bold letters, was tattooed pain. P-A-I-N. I mean, it took up his whole chest. I was just shocked just seeing that. And about 1 to 2 months later, he was found dead in his fishing boat. He obviously and boldly was screaming for help. He was so apparently fragmented. Now, did he try to get help? Did the church at that time, did his family at that time understand the depth of his despair? Did we that saw such a picture on Facebook even connect the dots? Were there actual resources at that time aware of fragmentation of the soul? Because I believe the enemy has tried to hide the topic of soul fragments for a very long time. Because why, people? Why? He is after your soul. And we must focus on healing our soul, strengthening our soul, walking in the power of the resurrection. That is so utterly important. And I so believe that so many believers have missed that point. And I had not fully grasped that point myself. But over this past year, I have. I see it. And Yahweh's not stopping here. He's going to move us from strength to strength on this topic, because he wants us to enter the promised land of our very soul before his throne room. He wants to bless us. He wants to heal us. He wants to strengthen us. He wants to show us favor. He wants to bring us before emissaries and kings and be a testimony to this lost and dying world. Without awareness, there is a lack of discernment in dealing with that level of brokenness. And we should have gotten this a long time ago. It was always in his word. And we're going to see later on, it's just going to bring more and more of his word alive, especially in the Psalms and especially in some of the parables. Our heart and soul involves thinking, desiring, rejoicing. So we can classify our heart and soul, as I've mentioned before. It equates to our mind, will, and emotions. If our mind, will, and emotions get broken, we have a problem, because we are talking about broken mind, a broken will, and broken emotions. And some of you have asked me, Libby, how exactly do we commune with our soul? And I found this little example on the internet, and I'll expand on it. But it says, Yahweh, I offer to you my heart that is hurting. At the crucifixion tree, your heart was broken and bruised too. You know what I am going through, and you know the pain I am feeling. Your word says that Yahweh is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. It also says he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. I ask for your healing grace to mend my broken heart. Take away any bitterness and anger inside of me. I accept your love. Show me the path back to wholeness in the name of Jesus of Nazareth, in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. And that's exactly what he's doing for us. He's showing us the path back to wholeness. Hello, hallelujah. I mean, really? I mean, he has flung open the door. He has lifted the veil, and he says, it's this way. Will you walk with me on it? Will you let me lead you through this wilderness? And I say, yes, we will. And by communing with your soul, by using those 5 V's, commune with your soul before Yahweh, strengthen your soul. David strengthened himself, and we can strengthen ourselves. Yahweh has given us that capability with his spirit living in us and through us. And start by thinking about those times that you were violated, not to re-traumatize yourself. You don't want to go that deep, but just commune with that broken part of your soul that was violated. Let that part of you ventilate at whatever age it was broken, and validate that part, as long as it's not throwing a pity party, and work with that part through forgiveness, and then work through the next step of eviction, what to do with it. Sometimes you have to remove certain people, places, and things from your life. Sometimes you have to create more of a distance. Let Yah lead and guide you on that. Therefore, we are not dealing with a simplistic view of a few flesh issues. No. This is attacking. This is unconventional warfare, and it is attacking people of all ages, and it attacked my own household. So I speak from experience. We are dealing with something quite serious, and I'm doing my very best to convey that. And hopefully it's his Ruach that is reaching hearts. I'm just a vessel trying to do my best. So sometimes after hearing sad news, we often have heard or said the phrase, well, that breaks my heart. You know, that phrase in itself reveals a lack of understanding and trivialization of the serious condition of a broken heart. I'm sure Satan rejoices at hearing such phrases to minimize the serious matters that can open portals to death and destruction, because a broken heart can be that serious. Satan desires to desensitize mankind to violence and trauma. Just look at the movies in Hollywood that they are releasing to both adults and children, desensitizing mankind, programming them, putting them under mind control. Because if people truly understood what a broken heart means, I'm sure they would not proclaim those negative words over their own heart and soul. Isn't it so easy to get caught up in those catchphrases? And without even thinking, we have just uttered words minimizing such a condition. Such cliches water down the true meaning behind proclaiming such. We know the power of life and death are in the tongue, the very words we speak. May we pray and help one another cancel such automatic utterances through repentance if we hear them spoken. So on the screen, on the slide right in front of you, this young man succumbed to a sextortion scam by 3 Nigerians. He was being blackmailed and they threatened exposure with pictures he had taken. You see, his young little soul was inexperienced and it was weak. So sadly, he was deceived. He didn't fully understand the ways of this world and how the enemy operates. And sadly, he took his life. He had a full life ahead of him, but he was deceived by Satan and demonic entities. And this is where shame, embarrassment, guilt, and fear is used by the prince of the power of the air to torment and at times kill. Other cases, mom warns of online sextortion scams after teen dies by suicide hours, just hours after scam. Those fiery darts can strike the very heart. Next, 15-year-old blackmailed in catfish scam dies by suicide. Next, they were tormenting him. Parents say teen suicide linked to sextortion. And lastly, the father of the son that was caught in that sextortion scam says, my son's suicide spurred me on to help others. See, Yah can and will use all things together for good for those that love him and are called according to his purpose. And Yahweh does say vengeance is his, and we expose evil. We shine the light on darkness, and darkness dissipates. Next, top 5 stock market day trading fails and meltdowns. It causes ultimate rage. Next, depression and suicide. Important message for traders. Master your trading mindset movement. Next, family set to sue Robin Hood over son's suicide. Next, 20-year-old commits suicide after seeing what he believed were major losses on Robin Hood. Tormenting addictions or spirits can attach themselves to a person, place, or thing, whether idolizing a girlfriend or boyfriend, succumbing to various fleshly desires, suffering a great financial loss, or being taunted or bullied. Addictions are not usually the primary root cause. There is usually something much deeper. Many times, but not always, addictions surface as secondary symptoms. Survival depends on the current condition of their heart and soul at that point in time.
Barney was an entirely normal, ordinary young man. He was a little bit anxious. He was quite shy. He was good looking. Everybody thought he was a nice guy. And I think that's what shocked people. You know, why? Why would somebody like Barney choose to end their life? He was lovely. He was quite bright. Good A-levels. Got a place at university. Met this girl. That relationship suddenly ended, and we don't know why. He gradually became more and more lacking in hope. And at the end of August, he remarked that life without her wasn't worth living. And we, of course, told him not to be so melodramatic. And on the 18th of September, he took his own life.
And how is that as a parent?
I can remember feeling that I wouldn't be able to cope with this. This was too much. And then I remember feeling rather angry, not with anybody other than myself, because I thought, here I've spent my life working with young people, and yet here was my own son who hadn't been able to cope with life, and I hadn't been able to prevent that. I can remember thinking, well, what does one do now, half an hour after you've been told that your son has taken his own life? Does one make a cup of tea? Do you go for a walk with the dogs? Do you cry? What does one do?
So why don't young men get help?
For years, we've always been the ones that are tough, that sort things out, that deal with problems, that solve problems, not that need problem solving for them, and that is a weakness. Us blokes, we've got other things to do, and we've got one or two, but mine's a pint, I'll come to the football, thanks very much. And eventually, the expectations that we have of ourselves, that our parents have of us, that schools have of us, that our peer group has of us, is huge. And it is much greater than it ever was in my generation. Are you as good looking as that person? Are you as clever as that person? Are you as this? Are you as that person?
Are you a success or are you a failure?
Are you a failure, my God? And I will tell children I speak to, you're all going to fail. That's the way it is. And how we deal with that failure, how resilient we can be, will very largely determine whether we are going to be emotionally and mentally well throughout our lives. But it is going to take an awful lot to change that generation after generation of men wanting to be seen as men, rather than being prepared to say, hey, I cry. That's what I do. That's how I've survived Barney, by having a good cry quite regularly. And I get some strange looks, but that doesn't bother me.
This world is working very hard in taking Yahusha out of the picture. And without Yahusha, the truth, there can never be complete healing and integration of a broken heart or fragmented soul. Without Yahusha, hope and peace are lost. Without Yahusha, we are not able to keep our horse and rider in balance, meaning our emotions and our thinking. Our thinking go out the window. Our emotions are sky high. We can't even understand our emotions or verbalize them. The person is just full of emotions. I will follow with a few more additional news clips based on true accounts of individuals that lost hope and were filled with shame, regret, embarrassment, and they felt that was bigger than they were. They didn't think that they could overcome it. They lost hope. Now, these clips are being shown to increase awareness of mental fragility in these days of global technology, of scams, of satanic ritual abuse, SRA, and the coming economic collapse in the end of days through day trading, through stock trading, through all of that as well. It comes from all kinds of angles. Today, demonic attacks can come through the door of your house. It can come through your phone, iPad, or computer and torment or even possess souls. Through gaming, all kinds of ways it can come in. Satanic lies are the fiery darts of demonic entities that can be blocked by Yahweh's shield of faith. Remember, his word says, raise up a child in the way he should go, and when he grows old, he shall not depart from it.
We are learning new details tonight after a 20-year-old Robin Hood trader took his own life. Let's get to Kate Rooney with the story. Kate.
Hey, Melissa. Yeah, this is an awful situation. Alex Kearns telling his parents in a suicide note seen by CNBC that he had lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on the trading app Robinhood. According to his family, the college sophomore was studying management and had a growing interest in financial markets. And according to a screenshot he left of his account, Alex had racked up a negative $730,000 cash balance. But his cousin, who we spoke to, says Alex may have misinterpreted what he owed. It could have been reflecting the other side of an options trade that had not yet settled. FINRA, of course, requires brokerage firms to approve clients for that type of trading. But this tragedy underlines the risks of complicated derivatives, especially for the flood of new retail investors that we're seeing this year. Melissa.
Curious, Kate, has Robinhood said anything about this death?
They have. They issued a response and said that they have reached out to the family and that they are looking into the way that they offer options trading. We don't know what that looks like yet, and they wouldn't tell us any of the details about the account, but they could end up changing the way that they actually do options. And like we mentioned, others in the industry have similar obligations of putting out a questionnaire or some sort of requirement and survey of what type of trader the person is and their account balance and other things like sophistication before they approve the trader for doing options. And this could change the way and the safeguards around some of the option trading in the industry.
All right. Kate, thank you. Kate Rooney.
Make no mistake, the depopulation agenda is very much underway. Mankind is being sacrificed daily. Technology has made Earth a prison planet, and a very deadly one. We find ourselves entangled and mangled in a very defiled and evil world, which is ruled by the prince and power of the air, AI, and lawlessness. Now is the time to make sure that our soul is strong and steadfast. Most will not be prepared to acknowledge what is already here and what is coming upon this earth. Thus, the need for the 2 witnesses and the 144,000. In Isaiah chapter 1, verse 9, unless Yahweh of hosts had left to us a small remnant, which is us, we would have become like Sodom. We would have become like Gomorrah. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 16 through 20. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean. Put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Stop doing evil. Learn to do good. Seek right ruling. Reprove the oppressor. Defend the fatherless. Plead for the widow. Come now, and let us reason together, says Yahweh. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they are red like crimson. So you've messed up big time. Come to me, because I will make them white as wool. If you submit and obey, you shall eat the good of the land. Eat the good of the promised land. But if you refuse and rebel within your soul, you shall be devoured by the sword, for the mouth of Yahweh has spoken. In general, this world has been dumbed down. Even those that proclaim to be strong Christians every Sunday, or actually, they're very weak because they feed on doctrine that's mixed with lies from the prince of the power of the air. Either they do that knowingly or unknowingly. The prince of the power of the air reverberates from the pulpits and does the work of Satan either knowingly or unknowingly. And they can be very dynamic speakers, and they can be speaking truth for the first 15 to 20 minutes of their sermon. But listen closely, and you'll start seeing the lies start getting blended in. The prince of the power of the air speaks loud and clear through our black mirror phones and iPads, otherwise known as scribe mirrors used in sorcery. Yes, Satan always comes to us as a mixture of good and evil. Why? Because he must deceive. Even rat poison is about 99% food and 1% poison. It is that 1% that is very deadly. Children and even adults are not equipped to handle these black mirror weapons. And many times they just have no idea that they are even weapons. And they are, if you don't know how to handle it. And sadly, you don't even need a license to handle these black mirror weapons. AI has entered the airwaves now, and this world is more dangerous than ever as the prince of the power of the air flows through your home and family. Probably 99% of the time, you will be unscathed, but it is that 1% that Satan sizes up as his prey. He looks for the weak. He looks for the vulnerable. He looks toward the young and the old, but actually no one is immune to these attacks.
If you're thinking of sharing a naked picture of yourself with someone, don't. There's a real good chance it could end badly, very badly. This family is mourning the death of their teenage son who killed himself after he got caught up in a sextortion plot, all after sharing a photo.
All right, guys, we're out here.
Riley Bassford was a typical 15-year-old who loved the outdoors. Last month, he joined Facebook. On the day he signed up, he got a friend request, which appeared to come from an attractive young college student who said her name was Megan.
Dirty blonde, flowing hair, sundress, beautiful.
She wooed Riley into sending her explicit photos of himself. His father, Darren.
I was a 15-year-old boy at one time, and, you know, you get curious, and if some beautiful lady is, you know, texting you.
But it was all a fake. Megan did not exist. The teenager was being catfished. What followed was a barrage of messages demanding $3,500, or else his photos would be posted all over social media for all the world to see. Cyber expert Parry Aftab says Riley was a victim of a sextortion plot, a crime that is increasingly targeted at young people.
Sex crimes against kids have doubled since the pandemic. Our kids are online.
He just lost his mind of embarrassment and fear and scared, and I mean, they kept hounding him.
The blackmail threats started at noon. Just 2 hours later, Riley, apparently overwhelmed with embarrassment, went up to his room and shot himself to death. His mother, Mary.
It breaks my heart that I lost him. Absolutely, like waking up without him is brutal.
His friends and family held a celebration of life at the Raquette River near his home in upstate Potsdam, New York. They say they want their son's story out there as a warning to parents and teens everywhere.
And I hope that you have peace and comfort. We love you so much.
An investigation is ongoing to find whoever threatened Riley, but police say this is a very difficult kind of crime to solve. Riley's family is setting up a scholarship fund in his memory.
So they said he was a victim of sextortion, like some of the other examples we saw. But his father said he lost his mind. He was actually a victim of a fragmented soul, a fragmented heart. He was suffering from a broken mind, broken will, and broken emotions. He didn't have a solid rock foundation. He may have been introduced, but had anyone ever told him about brokenheartedness, fragmented soul? Have we fully grasped have we in general fully grasp the power of these black scry mirror phones, computers, laptops, TV programming? And in the end of days, we're going to see more and more of the rise of the beast.
Traders, welcome to day 30 of the Master Your Trading Mindset movement. Today, we're going to be discussing a taboo topic in both society and in the trading industry. This is not something that I see any experts or individuals talking about necessarily, and I have seen very few, if any, effective solutions or ways to manage a very real thing that traders go through. And of course, today we're talking all about depression and suicide as a trader. Now, I've had my own experiences with depression that have come as a side effect of my perception towards my trading. As we're going to talk about, it doesn't really have anything to do with the trading itself, but has everything to do with how we view trading and what type of expectations and fantasies we have. So I'm going to share a little story about my own experience with depression and suicidal thoughts, and how they've affected and they've shaped me as an individual and as a trader. And I'm also going to, in this masterclass, break down very effective ways to manage and mitigate these very real feelings that you may experience as a trader. Now, personally, I never thought that I'd be in a situation where I'd be depressed or so low and have suicidal thoughts as a trader. But I think you get to a point in your journey where if things don't go as the way you expect them to, this is a very real thing that needs to be managed. And I don't think traders have the proper education on this. I don't think traders have the proper tools and the ways to manage this and the proper people or strategies in place to manage it if it does happen. So I wanted to put this video out, hopefully more so as a preventative thing, so you guys and girls can understand what depression and suicide is on a psychological level, and you can put things in place now to manage that if you are ever in a position where you do experience depression, or if you do experience suicidal things. Suicidal thoughts, because these are very real things, and we need to put things in place and we need to address them.
We have to remember addictions are usually secondary to a core issue. I believe the core issue is soul fragments and brokenheartedness that has not been dealt with, that makes the person already vulnerable because they have a weak soul. So people can have addictions to trading, day trading. They can have addictions to sports, drugs, alcohol, sex. All of that is symptoms of the core issue, which is a weak soul. So Yahushua wrote us letters directly in Revelation chapter 2 and 3. He tells us how to be overcomers, and he prepares us prior to the opening of the 7 seals. The third seal will be economic inflation and collapse. Many will attempt to make wise decisions with stock purchases and day trading options. The results are a combination of wins and losses. But keep in mind, these people are up against AI. Can man outthink AI on a one-to-one basis? These individual traders, if they think they can, they're working under a delusion, and the enemy loves it. So the results are a combination of wins and losses. Trading advice given is hit or miss. Corruption and wizards of Oz, if you will, exist behind the curtains. And the system is being taken over by AI, artificial intelligence. In Revelation chapter 6, verse 5 and 6, and when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." And I looked and saw a black horse, and he who sat on it holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, "A measure of wheat for a denarius, and 3 measures of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine." The denarius was a Roman monetary unit for a day's wages for such. However, I want all of you to know that there is hope and healing available. There are tools that we can use to comfort and bridge the gap so that we can relate and we can understand people with broken hearts. The tools in the Fragmented Soul series by Dr. Bob Strahan are referred to as the 5 V's. Bob Strahan holds a doctorate in both theology and psychology. He and his wife have become intimately aware of various degrees of fragmentation, healing, deliverance, and mind control. And they've had numerous counseling sessions that they have conducted that have proven this approach, this method. Pastor Bob hopes to have his ministry be one that can train others to become coaches because the need is so great. Honestly, there are very few Bible-based resources that understand fragmentation of the soul, that recognize when healing is needed instead of deliverance, or when both are needed. Sometimes healing is needed, sometimes deliverance is needed, but sometimes both healing and deliverance is needed. So Bob Strahan's goal would like to see every congregation have at least one coach. So his YouTube channel is Jed Baptist, and the Fragmented Soul playlist can be found there, and I will leave a link below this video. However, it is best to have a biblical foundation of Bible truths first. but it doesn't hurt to be aware of brokenheartedness and a fragmented soul. So there are numerous secular resources on the fragmented soul. I've mentioned before the internal family system. However, we must keep in mind that only Yahusha can heal the broken heart and integrate their parts. Only Yahusha. Secular counseling may help, but it takes Yahusha, the root of Jesse, to heal. And remember, my question is, what do secular counselors do when deliverance is needed? Without Yahusha, complete healing and integration cannot be achieved by the secular realm. Never forget, hope and healing, however, are available. And never let shame, embarrassment, or fear hold you back from help. You know, and never minimalize how someone is ventilating their brokenness. You know, like Barney was saying, I don't see any reason to go on living without her. You know, and his parents were saying, well, don't be so melodramatic. I mean, that's what we've been programmed to say. That's how our mind works. When we're busy and we don't have time to deal with something, we have to be very, very careful and have good listening to hear the pain behind such a statement. And then kick in those 5 V's to help that person further ventilate. Like, well, what do you mean there's no point in going on living? Really reach in and help them deal with that violation. Let them ventilate. And that's an opportunity to help validate what they're feeling. Yahweh dwelt among the Israelites through a tent. Now he dwells within his people through the Spirit.